So every summer I go up to a lake in upstate New York near the Canadian border. My family has a house that is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. It's a 30 to 45 minute drive to the nearest convenience store. We have 3 neighbors on our side of the lake, but there aren't any kids, and it's all mostly retired or vacationing elderly people. They don't stay up past 10, and it's perfectly quiet when the sun goes down. So here's my story. I have zero explanation for this, and the most reasonable thing to assume is a skinwalker. At 11:30 p.m., maybe midnight, my cousin and I go down to the dock on the water. We have to walk through a short path in the woods to get there, and the thick trees border directly on the shore. There is no beach. While looking out at the stars in the water, we hear a quiet, raspy grumbling, that's the best way I can explain it, out in the forest, pretty far away. We didn't really know what it was and wasn't bothered by it. About 2 minutes later, we hear the same voice say both of our names. Our names. This time it was closer to our property. From our dock we can see along the shoreline, and we're near a corner so we can see pretty well along the coast on our left. We're looking for a flashlight in the trees and saw nothing. Maybe someone was just out kayaking at night and said something to their friend, and we just heard them wrong. Sound travels across the water very easily, so it could have been someone talking from their house, although our neighbors are about a third of a mile away. Our uncle couldn't have been pulling a prank on us because of how far away it was, and there wasn't any light. 5 minutes pass and we've calmed down. While we were sitting there in silence, thinking about what just happened, we hear footsteps, loud, leaf-crunching footsteps, about 10 feet to the left of our dock, right behind the tree line so we couldn't see anything. These footsteps were either from a human, bear, or deer. My cousin whispered that we need to get inside, but I told him that it might be a bear, and I didn't want to get chased while running back inside. So we were sitting on the dock holding our breath as the footsteps continued, and stopped for a bit. All of a sudden we hear the same voice that said our names. Hello? I have never been more scared in my life. The voice was speaking English, but it wasn't human. It had an almost robotic growl underneath the word. I heard from another story, and the way the author put was spot on. The voice from the creature sounding like on those videos when cats and dogs speak like humans and can't pronounce the words now. Imagine that famous cat that says hello in a deep voice on YouTube, but much deeper in tone. Both of us shit our pants at this point and sprint inside, not even trying to glance at what was in the trees. Not that we could see anyway. My uncle was sitting on the couch with our dog. We spent the next 30 minutes checking the whole property and the nearby forest and didn't see or hear anything. What the hell could it have been? This happened a little more than a week ago, and the scariest part I wondered was, how did that guy know our names, and why was he on our property? Yesterday I was reminded of the Skinwalker with some videos on YouTube. It fits almost perfectly with the story, but they aren't known for being in New York. I wish I saw what it was, to see if it had a human or deer form. But the trees were so thick and it was so dark we couldn't see anything behind the trees. Anyways, talking about them is apparently bad luck, and encountering what I experienced ever again will be too soon. I live close to the reservation just outside Mesa, Arizona. I have a couple of native friends who I just recently went camping with around 20 miles outside the valley to a place they call Three Poles. The place is considered holy land in their eyes and is close to a river. There are numerous stories that I know about this place, such as the flute player you can hear at night, or the boulder-sized splashes you hear in the river. But the most notable are the stories of the Skinwalkers. We arrived at the camping site around 9 p.m. It was already dark, so we started to unpack and made a fire. Once that was done, my native buddies put up the barriers and puffed the smoke of tobacco upon us as a personal barrier. They told me never to go anywhere alone, and that 3 a.m. is when the spirits are most active. Around 2 a.m. the beating of a drum became very clear. This is the sign of the Skinwalker, they told me. At around 3 a.m. the smell of wet dog became apparent. This is a sign of either two things: Hoofy, an extremely evil spirit, or the Skinwalkers. The fire grew small and we could see the shadows of animals. We all decided to move to another site in the morning. As light first dawned, we packed. I sat in the back of his truck to hold the stuff down. As we left, I saw a Rottweiler walking on its hind legs straight to the middle of our camp. It was easily 5 feet tall and had bright orange eyes. I freaked out and screamed as it was running at us, still standing up. It disappeared into a bush after we turned the corner. Later on at our other camp, an old man with his face covered up by hair visited us and acted very strangely. We ran out of drinks, so a friend and I decided to head out on foot. The other friend had to take a car home, so we saw a car. As it approached, it slowed down to a halt, and the same man asked if we wanted a ride. We said no, because by this time my friends had told me the man was a skinwalker. He grabbed my arm and pulled me by his car and looked straight at me. As my friend ran up to grab me, the man took off in his car. Once we got back, I relaxed. It was around dawn when just behind me the man appeared about 10 feet away and asked if I could help him with something back at his camp. As he did, 2 trucks came around the corner to head further into the grounds. He watched them as they passed, and then all of a sudden he bolted after them. I was astonished seeing this 60-year-old man chasing down a car. My native friends put up a salt barrier. I heard sounds all night but never saw anything after that. This happened between Crown Point, New Mexico and the Borrego Pass on Navajo Tribal Road 48. I am a non-Native American who has lived and worked on the Navajo Indian Reservation as a school teacher on several different occasions. The most recent gig was from November 1997 to June 2000. As a lifelong resident of New Mexico, I have driven hundreds of thousands of miles, with tens of thousands of those miles at night. I consider myself a very experienced nighttime driver, where I have seen just about every type of mammal and animal, both wild and domestic, that New Mexico has. I've seen deer, elk, cattle, horses, sheep, dogs, cats, rabbits, mountain lion, badgers, skunks, porcupines, you name it, while driving it at night. I recognize them all. When I first started working at Borrego Pass School in 1997, I was making a home visit to one of my students. His name was Billy, name changed for the story. Billy was a very intelligent boy with a higher than average IQ. During the visit, he told me that their neighbor about a mile away was a skinwalker. I scoffed at Billy and said something like, "There's no such thing." But Billy insisted, saying that the neighbor changed into an animal and came into their house, and they also looked into their windows. This was all very interesting to me, but I pretty much forgot about what he said. Around 1998, I started teaching night classes at Dine College in Crown Point. Teaching astronomy. Class would end around 10 p.m. and I would head back home to Borrego Pass, 18 miles to the east. One night after class, about 10:15 p.m., sometime in the spring, April or May of 2000, I was driving my 1998 Ford Escort on Navajo Tribal Road 48. I drove about 50 miles per hour because of the possibility of horses and livestock in the roadway. I always noted Billy's house off the road at about the halfway point to my home. It was one of my waypoints. It was about this time that suddenly something weird passed from right to left in front of my car's headlights. This was the strangest creature or object I've ever encountered on the road. It was a large, shapeless hole that did not reflect any light whatsoever. My car's headlights simply disappeared and were swallowed into the darkness of this mass. I saw no definite shape, no legs, no head, no eyes, just a shapeless black hole. I've never seen anything quite like it before or since, but whatever it was, it gave me the creeps. I remember getting scared and speeding up. I pushed the car's speed up to 65 miles per hour and got to my little duplex at Borrego Pass ASAP. I got into the apartment as quickly as I could and locked the door behind me. Then I sat in the living room trying to figure out what I saw. The next day, I told one of the Navajo friends what I saw. His jaw dropped. He immediately said it was a skinwalker, but I had nothing to worry about since they can't harm white men. Still, it was weird. I've told this story to several Navajos and they have all pretty much come to the same conclusion that it was a skinwalker. Weird stuff for sure. A logical explanation says it was a black dog or black bear, but it's more fun to think of it as a skinwalker. This happened one night, but not the same as my skinwalker encounter. One night, when driving home from Gallup, New Mexico. I was being tailgated by a Ford Bronco, the old original type, that was driving without headlights. I wrote this off as a guy trying to use me as his lights since his didn't work, or he was drunk, or maybe both. I sped up as fast as I could to shake him. I don't remember what happened, but obviously he did not follow me back to Borrego.